What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports Cast Show. We're going live a little bit early. I know Bryce is on the road. We're getting this done before our college football show, which you'll see in 30 minutes. But we're breaking down the main slate, which, talking cash games, we got 4, 6, see how many games? 8, 10 games. So, not too bad. Right before the Thanksgiving week coming up, which that's always a fun one. That's always a nice grind. I'm excited. This is always a really fun, it's kind of like a 10 or 12 day stretch of just like tons and tons of football. So, Bryce, you're on the road. You look like you're ready to roll. How's it going?
Yeah. On a bachelor party this weekend, kind of out traveled, but this is kind of the last time I have to travel this season. So super fired up about that. Last week, NFL Cash was great. Ended up sweeping both sites. If Team Jam 'em in did anything with McCaffrey and Kamara, my team would have been up there in tournaments. So, yeah. I know I was on Purdy on DraftKings, and then I switched to Jameis with like an hour to go, and that ended up being a great switch. And, I made sure to ping all the members in Discord and change my chords and stuff. So,
yeah,
all the members are on top of that.
You made a better team than I did, and then I actually swapped my team. Like, I did a crazy swap. I forget exactly what it was. So it was Purdy, Jennings, and who else was a late guy that everyone was on? It was
McCaffrey,
yes. So I swapped off all three. Now, because I had lost to the Tillman train because I had the Myers one, and my team was just very dead, I felt like. So I want to hear what you think of this swap, because you and I talk about swapping. We definitely do it more aggressive than other people. On DK, I went Mahomes, Debo, and Kelsey. And it was obviously the Mahomes and Kelsey thing was really correlated because those guys don't really pop that much. But the idea was I'm so behind where I need like a vintage game, right? Like it was bad. So
yeah, Purdy and CMC did awful. Like you got that part right. It was kind of Jennings that killed you in the swap.
Yeah, and I know someone else who went. They went Allen and Sutton, I think, and I don't know. Yeah, I think it was Allen, Sutton, and Kelsey. And if Kelsey had a normal game, they would have cashed. So they gave themselves a shot, right? So did I. I gave myself.
Yeah,
a shot.
The whole point of swapping it is to get some correlation, possibly some leverage, like Debo's leverage on Jennings, obviously.
Correct.
And he can if he runs one in, he's leverage on everyone, all three of those.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely the right thing to swap if you're dead, or even if I'm leaning towards swapping. It depends how much you're giving up. If you're down a bit and you're not sure if you need to, you could do a 2v2 and keep CMC, keep Jennings, and then. I don't know. It all depends on the week too, and what contest you're playing. And
did you swap on FanDuel?
No, I had three.
Okay,
I had 3 nights. Yeah.
Okay, I was wondering. Well, because there was
the mega train. I was on the mega train. It was Shakir against Ladd. I was kind of behind, and I was a coin flip for me between Ladd and Shakir, and I knew everyone was going to have Shakir, so I just went Ladd. That made the decision easy because
you did swap technically. Technically, you did.
I had Ladd in, but I was going to play. I was leaning towards Shakir a bit. I thought he had a better floor than Ladd. So, but I did really like that Chargers late night game, and we get another good Sunday night game here. We get Philly and the Rams.
Yeah, I made a huge error, and I swapped because I'm curious of what you think about this. And I know we're talking about last week, but I think it's important. Last week, I think if you don't get the Bo Nix and Jennings insane outcomes like they got on FanDuel, along with everything else, I think that train doesn't dominate like it did, if you get what I'm saying.
No, it was the nut afternoon run out. The stone nut run out for that team. It was Jennings nut, Bo Nix nut. McCaffrey didn't, but everyone had him. Yeah.
So I was more in 50-50s. I looked at my allocation. I'm I'm in more 50-50s than I am, or head-to-heads than I am the multipliers and 3-mans. I don't know. I guess entering wise, that's just what I happen to do that week. And I swapped to Knox kind of panic-wise. I went Knox and Ladd instead of Shakir and Disley, because I just thought, I'm getting like the same two players in reverse positions. And I realized yours was way better when you just went Ladd over Shakir. Like doing the 1v1 was so much better than 2v2. I don't know.
I mean, I thought they were a straight up flip.
Yeah.
In swaps like that where I'm literally giving up 0 points in projection, like I love getting off the train.
Yeah. So I love what you did. I realized too late after, and because there was a lot going on. It was a very panicky locker room.
Yeah, and then Ladd got hurt like his first catch of the game, and I was like, motherfucker.
Yeah, because it looked like
he separated his shoulder or he had like an AC joint, and you could see him in the game because I turned it back on when I read on Twitter that he was back in because I turned the game off. Like he was like, I think it was his right arm. He was like literally only blocking with his left arm, and then like his right arm was just like hanging off to like the side.
Yeah. I broke my collarbone, and it's because you go down. Like a lot of time when you go down on the one side, that's how you do it. So whenever I see someone go down and their shoulders like this, I always am like, collarbone.
Yeah, you gotta land on the pad. When you land like awkwardly on the side, that's what messes it up.
Correct. So it was hey, at least it got there. So I actually, even though I made a mistake, I ended up not paying too much for it because the train cashed and I cashed underneath the train right there. So it worked out okay. It got the job done. But let's dive into this week. We'll talk about it. Paying down a quarterback has been the move, I feel like, most of the year. Now, Purdy last week wasn't really a spend down, and obviously it didn't work. The move was to go Jameis Winston. And even like the week before, Purdy wasn't necessarily a complete spend down, but I do think we want to go spend down this week. Also, pricing is reflecting some of that. Like Jaden Daniels is 7K against Dallas. He's not 7.5 or 7.8. Like that's worth mentioning on this slate. As we keep kind of looking through some of the pricing, Bo Nix is now up to a crazy price tag of 6.3. He was around there last week, but Bo Nix has been phenomenal. Getting a matchup against the Raiders on the road in a dome, you can't ignore that. That's certainly something to look at. As we start looking at cheaper quarterbacks, and that's kind of one of the trends, we're not trying to play cheap quarterbacks like Cooper Rush or like Caleb Williams. We're trying to find guys in good matchups or guys that run a lot, like Anthony Richardson. I know he's a guy that, he can get hurt or he can have a really bad game, but he can have a bad game and still get you 14 DK points. And I'm not saying I'm asking for 14, but he just has a nice floor because of his rushing ability. Then you have Geno Smith in a great game against Arizona. That's obviously going to be a marquee game, I think, of the slate that people are going to want to target. Could be a good back and forth game. It'd probably be even a better game if it was in Arizona. You could make a case for anyone else down here. I don't know. I don't think there's too much else to make strong cases for, but I'll say this, Bryce. Yes, I like those cheap options I said in Geno and Richardson, but the price gap is not what it has been. Like, it's just, like I said, Jaden Daniels is 7K. He's not 7.8, and that's reflected in all the pricing, where it might be easier to get to a Bo Nix, might be easier to get to a Kyler Murray, where it's not that big of a deal. So break down the quarterback position.
So it's pretty much like a binary decision for me. It's Daniels or you spend down. I mean, you can play Bo Nix at 6.3. I think he's a decent play. Like, if you end up on him, I think that's fine. I would prefer to find the money to get to Daniels if you're going to spend on a quarterback, though. I mean, excuse me. Dallas is just such a good matchup that, it's kind of hard to overlook. My issue is that, like, Dallas might not be able to keep that game competitive, but, Daniels has such a large share of the touchdowns and the rushing ability. I think he's definitely the spend this week. I prefer Richardson to Geno. Richardson does carry some risk, but I mean, his rushing floor is so good. And, against Detroit, I think that's a pretty good spot for them, actually, in terms of like being able to move the ball and like with his legs. So you're playing him for his rushing stuff. The last guy I'm going to mention here is DeVito. Definitely don't go there on FanDuel, but he is the flat 4K in the nut matchup against Tampa Bay. Now, the team might be dead, but if you really want to jam some of these skill guys in that we get to, I don't think DeVito's the worst play for 4K, to be honest.
Is he really that cheap? He's 4K.
Yeah, he's stone min.
Yeah, I mean, and it's Tampa, right? It's like
Yeah.
the key with it being Tampa is, and I always like to preface this. The Lions are a great example of this. Like it's a funnel. Like you struggle to run against them because they have B2B and because they're a team that you can't do one thing, so you just do the other. Very simply. And yeah, that is worth mentioning. I didn't even think about doing that, but it's worth calling out if you really want to jam some stuff in. Let's see what we want to jam in. Will we want to jam in McCaffrey? That is going to be a big question. Also, the way pricing is these days now, like, man, like, it's hard to get running backs. Like, they just have them so priced up. And, it's kind of been the year of the running back a little bit. Do I want to get to a McCaffrey? Do I want to get to a Mixon? I mean, they're fine. But I think a chain against New England is a really nice spot. One thing to call out with him is not only does he have, like, the burst and upside at the price, but the floor is just so good with him. I mean, look at his targets, 4, 5, 8, 8. I mean, the targets are going to be so – I mean, the PPR upside, we also haven't seen, like – I mean, I guess Buffalo, he boomed a little bit, but we just still haven't seen him, like, rip that 80-yarder and have that absolute nuke game. I do think that could come against New England. I think it's a really good spot for him. You could make a case for, obviously, the Detroit guys and Gibbs and Montgomery. I mean, I still think Montgomery's kind of cheap at 6.7K. Don't mind Kenneth Walker at 6.9. He's another guy you could look at. Again, we want to, I think, focus a little bit on Arizona, Seattle. James Conner at 6.5. You could definitely say that is an encouraging price tag. And also, there's not a lot of, like, value, it feels like. I mean, I think Kareem Hunt is a solid value as long as Pacheco's still out. I assume he's still going to be out.
I think Hunt's a lot.
Yeah, at 5.7.
At 5.7.
Yes.
Wide receiver super ugly this week. In terms of, like, what I'm looking at, I think it's definitely a 3 running back week. I'm really only considering 4 plays. Kareem Hunt to me is a lock. I would love to jam McCaffrey and Achane. I would rate Achane higher than McCaffrey, to be honest, like to save the $1,000. I mean, his pass game role is just absolutely insane right now. I do think CMC has a much better game than last week. That was like pretty much his floor. The one guy I like that people probably won't be on as much is Brian Robinson. If you're not playing Daniels at quarterback, he's only 5'6". In a game they should absolutely dominate. I mean, you guys all saw what Mixon did to that Dallas defense. So I do like Brian Robinson this week. Those are pretty much the 4 guys I'm really considering, unless like news pops up or something.
You don't like Connor or Walker?
I do like Connor and Walker. The issue for me is just that, like, I'm going to play Hunt and Achane. And then, like, I would rather just spend down and save the $1,000 on Brian Robinson and be able to get up to, like, a Jalen Daniels or someone like that at quarterback, or, like, a CeeDee Lamb even at receiver. I kind of like CeeDee. He's, like, the one receiver spend, or, like, just jam him in again. Hunt, McCaffrey, Achane. Yeah,
I'm curious to ask you about the Lamb stuff. Lamb looked so disinterested the other day. Like, he looked like he did not.
Yeah, he probably doesn't, but he's still probably going to catch, 8 balls for 80 yards as a floor. I mean, he is their offense.
Oh yeah, I mean they don't have a run game, right? It's like the extent, like if you're watching Bill Belichick talk about the Monday Night Football game on the Manning cast, he was saying what I've been screaming since week 1. It's like, you don't have a run game. Just throw screens. Like throw it in, get your running backs in open space like it's the pass game. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
To even run. Like, you don't have a run. Don't even do it. Honestly, I think it'd be better. Just drop back. No, they're in a rough situation though. Yeah, we could get the receiver. Amon St. Brown, I think, is a great spend. I think you do worry, like last week. Like, I was worried last week. Like, what is his floor, right? Like, I mean, his floor is maybe solid, but if all these other guys do well, I don't know. And honestly, the Lions just pour it on. They don't really care. Game's in a dome. I think he is the best spend if it's between, like, him, Jefferson, Nico Collins. I don't want Malik Neighbors with, DeVito back there. You may have sold me a little bit on the Lamb stuff. I have to look more into that. And again, this could be part of like the 2v2s and stuff, where it's like, if you are spending up at receiver for one guy, like, obviously there are different tiers. The $1,000, what are you doing with it is going to be more important. I don't have a take like, this guy is the stone best. It's like, what does that give me throughout my builds? I think that's more of the stuff that I'd be looking at. trying to see who else. Like you could, I mean, I can't do like McLaurin. Debo feels so cheap at 6'5". I mean, Debo has not been exactly the same. It feels like this year. As we kind of keep going down the list, obviously you can play the Seattle guys in the 6K range. It doesn't feel like this 6K range is like that great of a range, and it's more so living in like the 5K range with some of these receivers, like a Cortland Sutton, who's been great, and his matchup will be pretty good here against the Raiders. You can definitely make a case for him. Juwan Jennings at 5'6", he's basically Brandon Ayuk. I think he's a solid play against Green Bay that you would be giving a look. Jacoby Myers, we should call out. I know he busted last week, but 10, 9, 7, 11, and 6 targets. Like, he's wide receiver 1. He's going to have Surtain on him. That is a little concerning. I should call that out. But Bryce, talk about this range. Clearly, there's a lot of receivers to go to. You like the Lamb spend up for sure, but I do think we're going to want to live in this like 5K range to make a lot of different decisions at receivers, kind of like we have the past couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Lamb just feels like the safest amount of points. My favorite guy in the mid-range is Sutton. It's just a great matchup against Vegas. I mean, he's been so consistent. Bo Nix absolutely loves him. Don't really have to worry about anything with him. Myers, I'm willing to go back to the well to him with Surtain just because, they move him around a bit. But I would put him a tier below Jennings. Juwan Jennings is getting, just an insane amount of Purdy's first reads. He pretty much is, their passing offense right now. I mean, not to discount Debo or anything, but I think Jennings is a really good way to get pieces of this offense if you can. So I would rank them Sutton, Jennings, Myers in that range. Other guys, I'm seeing Pittman projected pretty well. Not playing him. I don't really see any punts that I like. I didn't really love the punts last week, but I don't really see anything playable in cash below Myers. Do you?
Below Myers? Yeah, that's a good question.
I think he's as low as I'm going to go in cash.
Yeah, I mean, another 5K guy. Do you want to mention Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 1 against Houston?
Yeah, Ridley. But the issue for me with Ridley is he's 6'3". Or sorry, no, he's not 6'3". I was looking at FanDuel pricing. Yeah, 5'7". He's definitely playable in that range. I would take Jennings over him straight up, and same with Sutton. But I would put him behind them, but ahead of Myers.
Yeah, it's worth calling out. We're doing this at 1:51 Eastern. We're not doing this at the normal time. Value could open up that we're not expecting.
Yeah, we don't. You kind of need Friday and Saturday practice reports. So as always, we do our best here for you guys. But
yeah,
make sure to get
You could go Kendrick Bourne maybe, right? It's not ideal. But for 3-6. I'm just guessing, guys, right? It's a rough spot down here. Also, as we kind of get to tight end, Bryce, I don't know if we're going to need to go that cheap because I think we have value in other spots, which we'll get to here in a second. That's going to just help us kind of round out our lineups. So I don't know if we're going to have to go this cheap. And to call out to the point, do I want to play a Lamb and a St. Brown? No, not really. You know what I mean? Do I even want to spend all the way up for McCaffrey and Mixon? I mean, they're not last week was more a jam them in week than this week. So I think that's part of the issue that I'm running into. Anything else to mention here?
I think that covers it.
Okay. So let's get to tight end. As we say every week, Brock Bowers is very good at fantasy. If you have the money for him, you can play him. I think he is the tight end to play if you ever spend going forward pretty much. So I think that covers that. Obviously, you have Kate.
I kind of like Kelsey. Kelsey at 5'8" is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Against Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, will they use him like that? I mean, it's definitely a spot that he could easily, if they want to get him a touchdown, they will, right? If he wants to get the job done, he can. We're assuming Jake Ferguson is out. He was a non-participant with a concussion on Thursday. If he is out, I mean, I think that lines up really well for it to be a Schoonmaker. Just play him spot at 2,500. We saw him get 10 targets last week. He would just be the guy. I'm kind of under the impression while we're doing this show right now, that would be the guy to get to, and that would be the guy to play. Other price tags to call out that are just like they seem favorable. I don't think Ottens is favorable, but like 5.5, it's definitely not bad against the Giants. Sam Laporta at 4.3 looks like a favorable tag. You obviously understand, hey, you might not get what you want, but it's definitely a favorable price for someone like Sam Laporta. TJ Hawkinson feels cheap at 4.2. Don't necessarily love the matchup and spot. Zach Ertz at 3.8. I know Zach Ertz isn't traditionally a guy you love to play, but he's going up against a defense that can't stop anything. So if Jaden Daniels wants to throw him the ball, he will, and he'll get it to him, and he'll have a good game. So it's like, if you wanted to, and you landed at 3.8, I don't totally hate that spot. But yeah, I mean, right now the lean is kind of just playing Schoonmaker. Do you have anything else to add here at tight end, Bryce?
I think you summed it up super well. I'm just a little higher on Kelsey than you are, I think. I would rank it Bowers, Kelsey, or punt.
You think? Yeah, Kelsey.
I think if you wanted to get up a little bit from Schoonmaker, I mean, you can play Barner. I don't think he's the worst play, but I mean, I would rather just save the 700 and play Schoonmaker.
Yeah.
I also just found a DeVito Schoonmaker team, which I really like, so I'm sure that's going to be fun.
Yeah, only thing to call out with the Barner stuff, Fant was a limited participant on Thursday.
Yeah, if Fant plays, he's obviously unplayable.
Correct. Yeah.
The mid-tier guys would be, I think, Ertz at 3.8 and Hunter Henry at 5. Henry barely had. I looked at him last week. He kind of missed. He kind of got unlucky not to have a better stat line than that. I mean, granted, they were trailing a lot. He got a bunch of garbage at the end, but he could have had a couple touchdowns in that game. So I don't mind Henry.
Yeah.
But right now, my preference is to just full punt or get to Kelsey.
Yeah, I'll call out one other idea, and this is it feels a little galaxy brain, but hear me out. If you lose Barner and you lose Schoonmaker, you'd agree, Bryce, there's not much down there if you lose both those guys.
Yes, 100%.
So I guess
it changes the build. There's no other guys.
Correct. The other guy would kind of mention you could get away with. I think you could get away with Noah Gray. The dude is just gonna he's playing Carolina and they're gonna put up points. And honestly, even if it's a blowout, he might be playing at the end of the game, just kind of in there and kind of eating against them. So again, I'm just saying, hey, if we have none of those good options, because it's rough down here. Besides that, I guess Dalton Schultz at 3.5, you could maybe do. That's not the craziest idea, but I don't love attacking the Tennessee defense. I know Tennessee's not a great team, but yeah, that's the it feels a little galaxy brain, I know, but there's just not much down here,
Agreed, 100%.
All right, we'll do defenses, then we got to get to the college show starting in a couple minutes. Defense, we hate talking about defense. It is what it is. We never like to spend for defense, so we like to go a little bit down. I think Broncos defense, they are on the road, but they're a solid one at 3.2. Dolphins defense at home. We know this Dolphins defense has been great. One thing I'll call out, man, the Dolphins are bleeding clock. And when teams bleed clock, that is not necessarily great for your defenses because you get less plays, less possessions if they're up and winning. But yeah, that's something else to mention with the Dolphins defense. But defense is pretty random. As you go down, the Bears defense at 2,500. Any defense against Sam Darnold that's cheap, I think should just be in the conversation at this point. You could call out Giants defense. They're not a bad defense, and Baker can sometimes make some mistakes, but he's been great this year overall. I wouldn't be playing Colts. This is definitely the part of year where I start getting nervous about playing some teams. Titans on the road. I know Titans defense hasn't been terrible, but if you punted, I think that would be the defense I would maybe go to if I full on punted. I think the Bears at home against Darnold is probably the best cheap one.
I do not want to go below the Bears. If you have to go below the Bears, I would play the Giants at home against Tampa. I still think their defense is trying. And, Baker will throw some picks and take some sacks. But I would prefer to get to, Tampa Bay would be my favorite defense, I think. And then I think the Dolphins are a really solid option here. The Texans are the top defense against Tennessee, I think. But I don't know if the Chiefs are the top defense.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to get to them or the Texans. So I'm likely going to live in the Dolphins to Bears range.
Yeah, I'll say this. If we do gain value, I could see at receiver, like I could see there be a route where we could spend it.
Yeah, if I can find a cheap receiver that I want to play, and right now I can't, that like changes the build.
All right, cool. Well, that is going to wrap it up for us. Thanks a lot for joining us here on the show. We'll be in the Discord chat, breaking everything down if you need any help with that. Bryce will be at the Bachelor weekend. I'll be grinding all the sports this weekend, just watching all the games. So I'll be here. We'll help you guys out. If you could like and subscribe to the channel, we would appreciate it. But for me, Mango and Bryce, see you guys later.